Hey there folks, welcome back to Mind of AK with AK Wright. I am a writing sculptor, sculpting writer, or whatevs. One fact most people don't know about me is I'm a massive fan of cryptids and cryptzoology. So for this week's project, I was torn between sculpting my rendition of either Bigfoot or my personal favorite Mothman. Then late Tuesday afternoon, it dawned on me. At the risk of becoming an enemy of every cryptzoologist in the country, I'm just going to buckle down and create my own. So for this week's project, allow me to introduce you all to my personal favorite project of the year so far, the Mudslayer. This was so much fun to make, and I just want to jump right into it. Let's have some fun, people. Alright, let's get our hunt for the Mudslayer on this week, with this week's prep work. I had initial hopes I wouldn't need a base this week, so I'm starting with making 4 oblong shapes of aluminum foil, 2 for his broad shoulders, and 2 for his massive calves and feet. Once they're shaped to my liking, I'm going to add layers of Super Sculpting Ultralight to each one, then I perform a stretch relief exercise to stab a hole at the top of each one from my armature wire. Therapy session complete. Once my feature feet pods are shaped, I take my thicker armature wire and cut them to their desired size. Then once I have them set, I'll connect both pieces of wire with a thinner piece of wire at the top for the arms, then a piece around the waist to shape out the torso. After the wires are secure, everything gets wrapped with sheets of aluminum foil, and then my infamous Super Sculpting Ultralight as well. Before I put the frame in for the first bake, I'll poke a hole through the middle of each of the shoulders and push the arms through. And before I attach them, I insert a much larger piece of aluminum wire in the middle that's going to serve as the 3 main components of our Medi Assassin, that being his neck, head, and a ginormous tongue, because reasons. This will then get bulked out with more standard foil and ultralight. Then I'm going to form a small ball of foil for his head, push that in place, add more foil for the neck, cover all that shit in ultralight, and then push a pair of custom painted 5mm glass cabochons in for the eyes. Then we're finally off to our first bake. With the first bake now complete, we can move forward with our sculpted time this week. As always, I'm using Super Sculpting Original, and for the first time on my channel, I'm also using Super Sculpting Firm. While I'm applying my layer of Super Sculpting Original, I feel compelled to share with you all the inspiration for today's creature/cryptid. So essentially, up until a few months ago, I had this super eccentric neighbor, who one day and I find it hard to eat pistachios to this day, and I haven't seen a squirrel or in ever since. Whew, I'm glad I got that off my chest. I actually feel a lot of relief, you know? Thanks y'all for listening to that madness, I really appreciate it. Once I have enough clay on the sculpture, I work to make a larger set of claws for the creature. I do this with ropes of clay that are placed on the thinner armature wire, detail them to my liking, and then I'll push the hands back onto the wire and lock them in with more clay. Once locked in place, I focus on detailing the arms, then I'll add some more subtle details and dimension to each claw. Since I imagine my newly created cryptid being an avid hunter and trapping his prey with larger grizzled talons, I figured a set of larger claws was more than sufficient today. For each of the claws, I'm adding 3 ropes of clay made out of Sculpting and Firm. One of the benefits of Firm is its ability to hold detail much better than the standard original, which is why I'll also be using it to fully sculpt his head, horns, and additionally his tail. Just to touch on the hands briefly, I want to acknowledge I'm not fully a fan of making hands in this manner, as far as wrapping clay onto a wire, but because I want the claws to be more predator-like and aggrandized, I believe the moment called for it, and I wanted to dedicate as much time as needed to ensure that they were proportionate to what I'm creating. Detailing the head in totality this week was a lot of fun and shockingly stress-free. I admittedly did take inspiration from a hybrid of two of my past sculptures, that being Gauss and Hatchie. However, I wanted to ensure I wasn't just doing a copy and paste project. However, if you ever would like to see how I did those, I will leave the links in the description below for you. Our Hunter of the Lands needs a nice thick horrid ton, so the wire is going to get wrapped with aluminum foil to give it some girth, and then I'm going to cover it with more of the Super Sculpey Firm before I move forward with detailing it as grotesque as possible to my heart's desire. Once I'm satisfied with the ton's progression, I shift my focus to add a pair of tentacle-like horns on the head, and bring some definition to the forehead with a rope of clay that will split the eyes right down the middle. It's then time to add some gnarly fangs in the mouth, which are made from Super Sculpey translucent Primo that are already pre-baked. Once I have the mouth full, I add a few extra leftovers that I decide would make some decent pinchers for the tongue, and I just go ahead and punch them in, and then do some more detailing on the head. I am approaching the final bit of detailing on my cryptid this week, starting with adding thinner ropes of clay around the, I guess, collarbone area, and oblong rectangular patches of Sculpey Firm that are going to cascade down the back towards the tail. Once I'm completely satisfied with the overall aesthetic, and not a moment sooner, I will then add some bumpy texturing on the tongue, a little bit of detailing down the chest, and final detailing all across the skin to give it a more reptilian appearance. Then we will place him in the oven at 275 degrees for 45 minutes, let fully cool down, and then we'll proceed with the final steps. And it was here when disaster struck. Somehow the piece found a way to fall over in the oven, and his feet completely shattered. Very depressing. But as depressing as this is a prime example for me to live my mantra for you. No matter what, finish what we start. Fix the mishap. I wrap the bottom portion with a small amount of foil, then I make a super batch of plaster de Paris, apple barrel matte acrylic paint, mint green, burnt umber and black, and Mod Podge, which I made off camera, and I smear it across the bottom of the base, up the legs, and I add some to the body just to add texture. Once the plaster is fully hardened, it is fully time to paint, and I will be airbrushing an array of metallic and matte paints from Deca Art and Apple Barrel this week. And I begin by doing a blend of mixed black and moss green all across the bottom. Once the base color is applied and I allow it a few minutes to dry, I paint the claws and the muddy ground a blend of burnt umber and black. Then I'll accentuate the body's color and ground with Deca Art metallic and green. Next, I get to painting the tongue and insides of the mouth in folk art color shift red. Then I'll add contrast to the tongue sporadically with the matte black and continue to shade the ground with the same black. I'm going to admit, painting the tongue this week was my absolute favorite part of the sculpture outside of making the terrain. I had a lot of fun and I really think it came out really well. I actually had a toss up between if I wanted to have the tongue blue, if I wanted it red. I think one time I wanted it to be striped, but I am very glad I settled with the red and I think I made the right call. If you guys agree, let me know what you think in the comments. And also, while on the subject of cryptids, do you guys have a favorite cryptid? I can say personally my favorite is Mothman, but I also love Bigfoot. Chupacabras are awesome. The Dover Demon has a really cool story, but I always default to Mothman as my preference of choice. If you guys have a favorite or one that I'm not aware of, let me know in the comments. And also, if you've ever been Bigfoot hunting, let me know how your experience was, because I really want to try to do that. That is definitely on my bucket list. After I finish shading the tongue and darken the eyes, I brush apple barrel and antique white all across the teeth, allowing the red stains that form at the bottom to stay for super obvious reasons. With all of the painting complete, I have reached my final steps of detailing this week. To accentuate the ground, I'm going to add an array of crumbled plastered bits, which are going to be super glued in place, and the same effect is going to be added to the arms and the top of his head. If I'm being super honest, paint job aside, the feet breaking in the oven was a very serendipitous occurrence, as I believe the ground not only brought a lot of detail, but it also brought a heightened sense of realism with today's sculpture. Do I wish it would happen again? No, but this time it worked just fine, and I'm super happy with the results. So after adding the rest of my larger pieces to the ground, I can honestly say the Slayer is ready for his moment in the spotlight, and I think it's time we give it to him. Let's get to some smaction. Fully aware that I sound like a broken record every week, but I really love how this week's project came out. I'm very proud of it, and I hope you all enjoyed it as well. If you did enjoy it, I would like to see if you could like the video, also subscribe to the channel, and set the bell notifications for future updates. If you made it this far into the video, as I say often, I truly appreciate all of your support, even just watching the video if this is your first time here. Just a little bit of an update for everyone. I will be updating my uploads to Saturdays moving forward, just for the foreseeable. It's a little bit crazy at my day job, and I just don't want to affect any future updates. But I will be back next weekend with a new video. In the meantime, please stay loved, stay blessed, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care, guys. Have a good one.